In 1935, Erwin Schrödinger proposed a thought experiment with his friend Albert Einstein, and the two scientists went back and forth thinking about this moment. It became known as the Schrödinger's cat. In it, Schrödinger proposed that a cat in a box that has some conditions that could harm him within inside the box, to the outside world could be alive or could be dead. And since we don't know the truth, it could be both simultaneously. I'm starting this way with you guys today to introduce myself to you. I'm John Antonetti and I'm a science teacher, and I have always been fascinated by Schrödinger's cat and the paradox it presents. In our current reality, in COVID pandemic, I'm thinking about the paradox a lot, that two things can be true at the same time. I'd like to say that I'm an old friend of Alamance Burlington because I got to be a part of the 2019 Summer Symposium that went deeper into the personalized learning framework of MIND. This beautiful framework that as a district you guys have been crafting over the past couple of years and have been rolling out into our classrooms. But while I'm an old friend, I also feel like I'm new to most of you. So I will introduce myself in a little bit. I'm excited to be here, but I'm disappointed that I'm not with you. Because originally October 26th was supposed to be a day where we came together to talk about the big ideas that are part of those evidence-based practice. And I was going to share with you some of the research we've conducted in over 23,000 classrooms now across the United States, looking at how learners learn best. I'm here with you today through this medium, but I'm actually still here in my office in Arkansas, where I've been, like many teachers around the world, sitting in my own little corner, trying to still be the teacher that I want to be for kids. But the thing I want to talk about most today is that something can be simple at the same time it's complex. And to me, that's our MIND framework, that modern, innovative education, nurturing environment that builds the best learner is a very elegant and elaborate system of looking at the learning and teaching exchange. But at the same time, I think it's quite simple. And that's what we're going to play just a little bit, is the simplicity of this beautiful model. If we take another step forward every time we get back together into that mind and go deeper into the mind, pun intended, I get to be a part of this small journey. Again, I was with you in 2019 and 2020. The plan was to move from spending some focused time on the nurturing and education to then moving to modern and innovative. And then the pandemic and the anxiety of what school would look like and how would the governor and the state Department of Education and the district roll this out. How did I get to be a part of this work? Well, my journey started many, many years ago. I told you I was a science teacher. I love teaching middle school science, and I love the hormones, and every day is different in middle school. And I did that for 3 years and really enjoyed it. And then I got a chance to go to the high school, and I taught AP chemistry. And I'll tell you honestly, I felt like a really good teacher teaching AP chemistry because in the early 80s, we only let the kids who were completely ready for AP chemistry, not the kids who needed it, but the kids who wanted it for the 5-point A, the highly motivated kids. And I only taught 5 classes of the exact same kid, highly motivated. And I began to feel like this teaching and learning thing was pretty easy. Perhaps I was oversimplifying it. But through an odd twist of fate, I ended up in a small rural district where I was going to be working with high school gifted students. And then the Sunday before school started, I was moved to kindergarten. Now, I believe all learning starts with just analysis. So I'm going to ask you to look at me. Do I look like a kindergarten teacher to you? See, I don't think I do. I don't even own a denim jumper. See, the reality was in the 80s, you could not teach kindergarten without an apple appliqued to your denim jumper with ABC and 1, 2, 3. But I was so blessed to end up in kindergarten because everything I thought about learning had to shift. I realized when I was in kindergarten that kindergartners engage no matter what. You don't even have to invite them. Anyone, anyone, anyone. When you ask a kindergartner a question or just sound out a word, cat, everyone talks. I'm a cat, my cat poops, my cat climbed the Christmas tree, and everybody tells you everything they're thinking. I had this breakthrough though in my 3rd week of kindergarten that really got me moving into this idea of how do we engage kids. I'm on playground duty and I'm by myself, so I've really come a long way. And the other teachers in primary have decided that John Antonetti is ready for this rite of passage. And as I'm standing at kindergarten duty, I'm watching the kindergartners and the 1st graders and the 2nd graders play, and I realized I have lost 3 children. Now, I don't know if this is true in your district, but in Arkansas, they can fire you if you lose children. So I'm in full panic mode. So I began to scan the horizon looking for these boys, and then I see them across the street at the high school fence. Now, granted, the town I was teaching in is small and rural, but still, a slow-moving tractor could have provided a real hazard for those kids. So I began to yell at the kids to get them back to the playground. Boys, come back over here. And here's the deal. The group of 3 boys was led by a student named Davis. Davis Hendricks is probably one of the brightest children I've ever taught. I'm even going to use this phrase. He's wicked smart. You may now infer whatever you want from those 2 words. But Davis and the boys are across the street, and I start yelling, boys, come back over here. And Davis yells back, no, you come back over here. I said, no, you're supposed to be on the playground. He said, no, you come over here. You got to see this, Mr. Antonetti. After some negotiation, I went over there to get the boys. And the boys are looking down in the grass. And I said, what are you doing, boys? You're supposed to be on the playground. And Davis Hendricks said, you've got to see this, Mr. Antonetti. You're not going to believe it. And here are 3 boys looking down in the grass at a small beetle crawling through the grass. And I said, what are you guys doing with that insect? Well, Mr. Antonetti, did you see it? It landed on Javon's shoulder and then it flew over here. And we had to come over to see what kind of bug it was. And I said, well, I can appreciate your curiosity. He said, yeah, but watch this, Mr. Antonetti, watch this. And Davis leaned down and got close to the insect and screamed, ah! And the bug continued to walk in a straight path. As Javon took his turn and screamed, ah! At the insect, the same path continued. Finally, Michael screamed and the bug continued in a straight line. Davis stopped it and said, can you believe it, Mr. Antonetti? Can you believe it? Bugs can't hear. And I said, well, that's pretty cool, boys. He said, yeah, but watch this. And he lifted his foot and he stomped the ground in front of the beetle. And the beetle changed direction. And as Michael and Javon stomped forward, the bug kept changing directions quite erratically. I was about to ask, hey guys, why are you screaming and stepping on at this bug? And Davis said, can you believe it, Mr. Antonetti? I just can't believe it. I just thought, though, bugs can't hear, but bugs can feel. And I sat there thinking, that is pretty cool, boy, that you figured that out. Let me tell you why that is. And I began to become a teacher. I said, you know, on the segmented body of a creature we call an insect, the first segment, known as the head, has specialized structures called antennae. And the antennae serve to, and as I began to teach, the boys ran away and went back to the playground and left me standing there all by myself. And I'm going to tell you the honest truth, even on video. I said out loud to myself, what the hell was that? And I remember thinking, I know what it was. The kids had just had the learning moment they were after. They did not want to stick around now for the PowerPoint slides and my presentation and my teaching. As I think about that today, I'm thinking about the mind framework. And I'm stuck in modern. I'm right there in modern because what I had to struggle with was, who are these learners? What do they want? They take control even when it's a dangerous situation. They were learners who were curious and wanted to design their own learning. Yet I had standards I had to teach in kindergarten: reading, writing, math, lining up, which is huge. But their profile required a response. I had to change what I was doing, at least some of the time, to meet their needs. I had to become more innovative. Now, I'm only 3 weeks into the kindergarten year as a teacher. I don't know how to be innovative because I don't know what to give up. But my question was, how will I keep Davis and Javon and Michael in their natural, curious learner brain? So I'm here to talk to you just a little bit about why mind matters more for our students, probably more than ever in our current pandemic. More than ever before, we need to be clear on what takes priority in our learning, using the pathways and the profiles to decide where our kids are, and then try to make that fit our current reality. Practices of teacher clarity, mastery, self-efficacy, alignment, activating prior knowledge, all of these practices become choices for me, a menu, a model for me as a teacher. And that's where I start to get a little overwhelmed, especially when it's in a distance learning format, or as I am moving towards a hybrid model and I have to figure out, how do I do all this in another new framework? And that's where I'd like to say, let's keep it simple. So I want to share something with you. One of my favorite books I've ever read was written by a molecular biologist named John Medina, and he wrote a book called Brain Rules. And he basically in this book says there are 12 conditions of the human brain in terms of the way we are wired up that make us who we are. And it's a fascinating book if you ever get a chance to read it. But Brain Rule number 8 is the one I've been living in since last spring. Brain Rule number 8 says that stressed brains don't learn the same way. I got to believe our kids are coming to us now in a stressed brain. I believe teachers are in a stressed brain. And yet we're still moving forward and we're still doing all that we can for kids, but it doesn't feel quite the same And so when our brain is in a state of stress, and this is how Medina defines stress, when the brain knows it's not actually in control of the current situation. Many of us are finding that we're having to find ways to at least have the illusion of control in our current situation when we're really not in control. I want to go a little bit further with brain rules and the idea of what do we do with the stressed brain. When I go into the mind framework, I've got to recognize that my modern learners, where they are, is living in this stressed brain, and I've got to be innovative. I've got to use all the tools in our toolkit to figure out how to get kids to that prioritized, explicit standard. Let's talk a little bit about the modern learner for just a minute. I've had a chance to work with my schools that I continue to work with across the country, and this summer I was actually watching a lesson, a beautiful lesson done by a high school teacher in a Zoom format with about 16 kids late in the evening because the teacher was having a class at night, so her kids who were helping their family out in economic hardship could join her. And as I watched kids who had varying degrees of focus, if you will, answer questions, have conversations, chat, go into breakout rooms, and then come back together. When Mrs. Schmezik asked one of the kids a question, she said, "Michael, I'd like to ask you this question." I watched Michael's little box in the Zoom window as Michael said, "Well, I really think the answer is..." And Michael froze up on the screen. And so there are 16 other faces, and I'm watching Michael and thinking, oh my goodness, he's frozen up. And the teacher says, "Mr. Antonetti, Michael's been having some bandwidth problems because he has younger brothers at home who are online at the same time. Perhaps he'll come back in." Well, while Michael was still frozen up, we watched his left hand. I could just barely see it come in, and he clicked out of the session. And what struck me about where we are right now is for the first time ever in our history, kids are in absolute control of how much they're going to do for us. I have to decide, what will they do for the learning moment? What can they do for the learning moment with more independence when I'm not there to use all the magic that we as teachers have of proximity and being engaging and trying to be big and trying to encourage kids when I've lost it through the screen? So while the M of modern is mostly about kids and where they are and where every student is coming from, what we know now in part of our modern is all of our kids are living in a reality, the same reality of how school works. What amazes me is how across the country I'm watching teachers respond in very, very innovative ways, using all that they can in new learnings and old learnings to make learning powerful for their learners. Let's watch some of our colleagues who are doing everything they can, even with their own stressed brains.
The museum? Yeah? Yeah? All right, good job. Everyone tell me, what is this called? Let's go ahead and kiss our brains. Throw some glitter. Make it rain. What do I put at the end of my sentence?
Period.
It doesn't show 3. What's wrong with it? All right, very good. Thank you. Wait.
I don't hear it. But how?
Oh, I'm sorry, guys. I didn't share the sound. Let me fix it.
Almost done. I'm tired.
We're almost to our next break.
We even have school tomorrow.
We do have school tomorrow.
Oh, man.
What was it? Have you guys heard that song? Friends. Okay. FR.
I love you.
Have a great day.
Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.
I love you.
I love you too.
I love you.
I love you too. Oh my God.
And sometimes the insight we get into who our kids really are is quite interesting.
You had 2 tests?
I did this!
You got a 53 and a 60. You can cheat. It's online.
I did cheat!
And you still got a 53 and a 60.
You probably saw something in those videos that looked familiar. as we are all trying to figure out how to use the technology to reach kids through distance learning. But that brings up an interesting point. Technology is not the innovation. Innovation simply means that we meet the needs of the kids where they are with whatever tool is appropriate. Technology can certainly be one of those, but as those videos proved, technology may not be the innovation we need at any given time. And that takes me back to something we said earlier, that while the personalized learning model is very complex in terms of all the things we're trying to put together, it has a very simple focus. And that is, as we are designing for the foundation for personalized learning, at the core of personalized learning is that we are all unique individuals. We have personal experiences, personal reactions, personal responses. In 2005, Dr. Jim Garver and I started doing research on engagement, and it led to the writing of our first book, 17,000 Classroom Visits Can't Be Wrong, looking at what truly engages kids. And we were literally trying to figure out what the definition of engagement was, a workable, research-based definition. We started with Philip Schlechty's definition that when the work has meaning to the learner, it's engaging. The problem with that for the teacher is that some kids want collaboration and some kids want independence. Some kids want a product with free reign in terms of what they construct, while others would like a little more linear support for what to include in that. So we then shifted our definition to engagement occurs when the learners make meaning. Now that's going to actually impact the other parts of the mind because when learners make information, when they make sense of information, they bring what they already have to wrap around the new information. And so that information gets coded with greater efficacy in the brain. Another way to think about that is when we give kids a chance to make sense and make meaning, we are going to accelerate the brain. That does not take the place of needing to learn skills and protocols and procedures and knowledge, but kids already have things they can bring to the equation. So I'm going to suggest that we offer opportunities where kids have information, followed by the forced opportunity to safely communicate what they see that is true. In other words, we're not going to make up a word here, to informate. Tell me what you see. One simple example of that comes from Sesame Street and the Children's Television Network. One of these things is not like the other. One of these things just doesn't belong. Let me show you what I mean. If I put up 4 images of coins and I don't tell you yet, because in this moment, I don't want clarity of response. I want clarity in what to include in the response. What I would want each learner in my class to do, whether this is kindergarten or 8th grade or today in training, I would love to just show these images and say, look at this and tell me what shows up to you to answer the question. Which doesn't belong and why? As you're looking at those, each individual brain is deciding what mathematical reasoning or what they're visually seeing that can have a mathematical connection. So some of us might say, well, the quarter is the one that doesn't belong because it is the only single coin. Now, if I'm pushing kids to informate and really encode that information, I don't want them just to say that the coin is the only single. I want them to name the full context, that the coin is the only single while the others are more than one or are multiples. While another learner can say, well, the pennies don't belong because they're the only ones that are copper. To continue the informating, they're the only ones that are copper, while all the others have a silver color. See, I didn't know if it was color or metal until I heard the rest of it. Still, another kid can say, I'm seeing the quarter as round, while the others to me look square because of their array and their arrangement. There are so many possibilities for what kids could say, and this is the personal response that serves as the beginning of a personalized learning plan. We look at school and recognize that not all learning can have a personalized moment and can allow for kids to make sense of everything. We have what we call the rigor divide, and we recognize that learning occurs on 2 sides of the rigor divide. Half of learning is this idea that you are taught skills that you repeat, that you are taught phonemes that you use. You are taught how to use the FOIL method to factor something. You may be taught something so that it becomes practical, usable, and it takes time for that to become owned by the learner. What we know is when we ask kids to add personal response and make sense or make meaning uniquely by the way their brains are designed, we actually accelerate the learning for those kids when they get a chance to think across the rigor divide in their own unique style. Now, that doesn't mean I accept kids just saying an opinion. I need facts, I need evidence, I need analysis. I need to know that what they're saying is true, that what you see connects with what you know from your schema and your emotional, and you are recognizing a true pattern. We have another tool that we call the powerful task matrix or the powerful task rubric, where we also recognize that cognition occurs in multiple levels, and we do want some level 1 memorization in life, and we do want some level 3 analysis. We also want the personal response of filling in the blank by just telling me your experience. That's an example of what I'm teaching, versus I want analysis of how this exists in your life and what is the implication in your life. So in just a moment, we're going to put you into a breakout room, and we're going to ask you to play with this simple idea of personal response. You'll have a choice, because one of the things we know that's engaging to the learner is choice, because choice is the illusion of control. So in a moment, your leadership team will ask you to go into a breakout, and you'll have a choice of a couple activities. Pick the one that makes the most sense to you, or that is most interesting to you, or connects to your content. One of the choices, because sometimes in PD, we like to stay with, I just saw something, I'd like to figure out how to use it in my own classroom, is how do we use which one doesn't belong, the Sesame Street model, in any content area. A second choice would be a task that's a little more open, a little more social studies-ish, if you will, and allows you to make unique decisions about what in the world impacts you. The slide on the screen now shows the two choices during the breakout moment. Facilitators, you may wish to pause the video right now to allow people to see the two choices and decide how you will organize the breakout rooms.